Hello, guys. Welcome to this live session. I'm going to be teaching you about something very important, which is called consistency. If you've been struggling with how to stay consistent with the particular thing you are doing, then this is definitely for you. Maybe you are a business person, or you're learning a skill, or you need this knowledge to help you in school to stay consistent with your reading pattern or whatever. I think this is very helpful, and it's going to give you the guidance for which you need to be able to build and get the result you're looking out for. So the subject for consideration is on consistency. Don't mind the writing. So what's basically consistency? Consistency is basically about you doing a thing for a very long period of time without breaking or without going off. All right. Basically staying within a commitment. Right. That's what consistency means. And what makes consistency a very strong hold, it is because when one stays consistent, it's in the long run permits certain results. So first, consistency is commitment for a period of time. All right, for a long period of time. So if you can stay committed for a long period of time, then definitely you have some sort of like consistency going on with you. All right. So the second thing is that consistency is relevant. The relevance of consistency, it becomes relevant. The definition, this is the relevance. Relevance of consistency is that anything that stays consistent for a given period of time, somehow, some way, it becomes successful. Right. So consistency, it allows for success. That's the core advantage of consistency because it allows for success. And so anybody would want to stay consistent just with the fact that this would eventually give them success. And because this is very valuable, it affects and cuts across to every segment of life. All right. So where does this work? It works on everything. All right. It works on everything. It works with family, it works with schooling, it works with business, it works with everything. And we're going to see how this plays out in the negative format and in the positive format. Negative format as to how it plays out in negative life and how it plays out in the positive things. And then you can see how you can bring the knowledge from whichever rank you pick from, the negative side or the positive side, and leverage on that to be able to build a framework that allows you to be able to stay consistent on a particular thing or on a particular task. It's a very brilliant idea and it's a very brilliant thing to work on because in a very long way, this is going to affect every other thing you're going to do as regards life. All right. But the main issue of consideration here is not just consistency itself, because the truth is consistency is not a problem. Consistency exists, all right, always. So you have to have that note that consistency is not the problem. That's one. The second is consistency is not a skill. Someone is running up, but people learn consistency. Well, it is not a skill really. People don't necessarily learn consistency. They align with consistency. You're going to get that fact that's going to solve this issue for you. And yeah, you'll get your solution quickly. So these are two things you need to know, that consistency is not a problem. All right. And consistency is not a skill. So what is consistency then? Consistency Consistency is a product of alignment. That's basically what consistency is, a product of alignment. So when you get to stay aligned to a particular task or to a particular thing, you get onto what to be consistent. So if you are aligned with your goal, you stay consistent. If you are aligned with your dream or whatever thing that you want to achieve, you stay consistent. So consistency happens as a byproduct of effective alignment. I want to dig deep into how this works. But first of all, let's see several examples of consistency playing out. The first example I would like to pick out is life, right? Now, you can't live life without being consistent. I mean, every single person that is alive is constantly living, and you consistency only dies or stops or ceases when you die, right? And so you don't try to learn to be consistent while you're living. Probably it is a thing that happens with you living, right? And so consistency is life, right? Or life would happen because consistency is there, or consistency is there because life happens, whichever way you want to define it. But in an expression that you don't necessarily need to learn this, it is happening, it is moving, it is taking its course, whether you like it or not, as much as life is going on, right? So you being alive is an expression of what consistency. That's like a pretty example that works with every single person here on earth. So you can't say that you're not consistent because right now you are being consistent in living. Let's look at something else with your phone. I think this one will resonate to many persons, right? So with your phone, somehow, someway, we've gotten into the age of technology where many things are possible, and so we have digital devices that can do incredible things, like I'm using right now, right? And so your phone seems to be like a very important commodity for you, and it's important because it has access. You have access to many things. You have access to view what's happening all around the world. You have access to many informations, and there are many personal things that are right there in the phone that you really value. And so because of all of the holistic covering of all of these things, and possibly maybe because of the cost that you used to spend to get that phone, you find this phone very important. And somehow, some way, you sleep with this phone every single day. You keep this phone by your side every single day. You work with this phone every single day. And every time you have a little disjoint with your phone, you feel it. You know that, this thing is not with me. Right? And you become very, very concerned about your phone. Right? So you have actively stayed consistent in utilization of your phone. Right? So basically, this is you being consistent in using your phone, and it's the simple stuff, right? And if this could work for phone, and if this can work for life, it also works in negative things, and that brings us to the example, right, of what we call laziness. Now, some persons are struggling with certain habits and attitude. One of it is what lazy. For the fact that every time people complain that you're lazy, it means that what you have been consistently taking an action that reflects what they call laziness. It could be that you are not prompt to taking actions, you're not prompt to doing something. But when they can define you as a lazy person, it means that you have been consistently doing an action that portrays what a lazy character does. All right. And so you have successfully applied consistency in a negative thing or a negative factor. All right, the same thing works for late coming or late going, whatever you call it. So you go to events late, you go for activities late, you show up late, and every time you show up very late. All right, this you have been consistent about, and why they call you a late comer is not because they don't want to call you a late comer, but because you have consistently expressed a certain kind of attitude that they can tie towards late coming, and they say that what you are a late comer. So if you came late yesterday, but today you are early, next tomorrow you are early, next other tomorrow you come late, you come late you came a little bit late, and then the other tomorrow you are a little bit early. They won't necessarily tag you as a late comer. They would say, okay, maybe this is just a sequence of things happening like that. But they won't necessarily call you late comer. But when people can say you're a late comer, it means that what you have successfully taken actions that guides you towards a particular outcome, which is late coming. So this is very simple, and it is a solution to getting you off the grip of the limitations and possibly not staying consistent in things. So what makes one consistent? Right? What makes for consistency? What makes for consistency? There's several factors that can actually tell us that okay, this is what consistency means, and this is how we can be able to arrive at consistency. We need to outline several things that are examples that say that what someone is being consistent. So, what makes for consistency? Number one is called purpose or why. Purpose or why. Now, this is a very, very strong pivotal point in helping you to stay consistent. Right? If you don't understand the value of a thing, the need of that thing, the importance of a thing, you don't stay consistent in that thing. And so, the biggest work of anyone that wants to stay consistent is actually understanding how valuable it is, how valuable a thing is. And this layer is a very critical layer that to achieve it, you have to ask the why question 5 times on 5 levels. For example, why do you want to be a rich man? You can say, I want to be a rich man because I want to have much money. You ask you again, why do you want to have much money? I want to have much money because I want to have freedom to do things that I want to do. You ask again, why do you want to have, why does this mean so much to you to have your freedom? Because I want to just not be struggling and just have my peace of life. They ask me, why do you want to have a peace of life? Because I want to use that time and opportunity to be able to take care of my family or take care of my friends. All right. Now your why game has become clearer deeply and deeply and deeply. And the deeper you go, the more you understand how much valuable this is to you for you to be able to engage on it. The problem is that some people ask themselves the why question in just one layer and they don't get deeply into the frameworks that makes for them to have a very strong grip of what the reason why they're doing. So if you can take your time to ask yourself the why question as deep as 5 layers, it now opens in your mind, now opens in your thoughts the strength of what you are doing and why you're doing that thing. And so that gives you confidence to actually pursue that thing with so much zest, because you don't just understand that thing in little frameworks, you understand that thing in broader frameworks, because the questionings have opened your mind to the possibilities of the value that this thing that you're looking out for produces. All right. So the why game is very, very important. The purpose is very important. You need to understand the purpose of a thing. Else, what happens, abuse is inevitable. So if you understand the purpose, you embrace it better. If you understand the purpose, you appreciate it better. If you understand the purpose, you welcome it better. If you understand the purpose, you engage with it better. So this is the first framework, which is called what? Why. It makes for consistency. So if you understand why, it's easier to do a thing and stay committed to that thing because you know why. You know that this rent is very important, and it's important because if you live, if you don't have a rent, you won't have a shelter over your head. And so what happens? You take every step possible to get money to pay your rent, right? Because you know how valuable this is. You want to have a shelter over your head. You want to have a cover over your head. You want to have a peace of mind. You want to have where you can rest your head. So that is the first framework. on why. Number two is consequences. Very, very funny and very beautiful stuff. Consequences. Now, for you to stay consistent, you need to also understand what are the consequences of not doing this thing that I've called as my why. What are the consequences of not staying faithful to this particular course that I want to go? What are the consequences of not achieving this goal? So you need to understand what the consequences are, and if you understand what the consequences are, that guides your action to say, oh, I don't want to face this trouble. I don't want to face this reality. I don't want to face this pain. And that guides your decision. For example, someone that steals might not necessarily understand the depth of the consequences of his action until he carefully sits down and examines how that stealing will take that person to jail. How that stealing will not just take the person to jail, but even his family that comes in tomorrow is going to affect his children, because the children will also inhabit that kind of character that he had before. And possibly, if it happens that he goes to jail, many of his years that he should have spent living a life or building a life for himself or having building a family will be spent rottering and suffering and just being in hell in jail, right? And that in itself is a framework of understanding, right? And one of the trick of the consequences, you need to outline at least times 5 consequences that would cost you when you are not faithful to your goal. All right. So if I don't stay faithful to my goal, what would it cost me? Am I losing something if I don't stay faithful to this goal? Am I losing something if I don't stay consistent on this particular thing? If there are things that I'm losing, you wait. Are these things really worthwhile that I can be able to lose out on? If they're not worthwhile, then you can definitely get on to what procrastinate or not stay consistent, right? But if these things are worthwhile, if these things are very valuable, they're very, very important, and they affect my future in a very large range, then I can now say, oh, this is a very important. It means that I have to stay core and, very importantly, stand strong in engaging with this. And what happens from there? You can pick that insight and stay consistent. Number 3, what makes consistency is proximity. Proximity is saying that you need to have the closure towards whatever you want to achieve. The more closure you have with whatever you want to achieve, the better you get to engage with it. So of course, we've been with relationships with people whereby we never had so much going on, but because we were just close to those people, we had engagement, we had conversations, we had things going on, we had to talk, we had to say 1 or 2 things, and somehow we got to bond with those persons just because of proximity, right? And so it made more like a relationship happen because there was a proximity, and immediately after there's a separation, that relationship ceases to exist, yes, because of the end of proximity. There is now a distance apart from those persons. And so if you want to stay consistent with a thing, you need to do it. You need to create proximity with that thing. And creating proximity with that thing means that, number 1, that thing needs to be reinforced always. Right? It needs to be reinforced always or often. What this means is that the reason and consequences should be on your face. Right? The reason and consequences of doing this should always be on your face. And you can always examine those things. When you wake up, you think about it. So you create systems around you in your life that shows you that this thing is valuable, or this thing is what's going to cost me this suffering if I do not do it. And so we get on to engage on it. So this is a very strong strategy as regards proximity. All right, you always have to reinforce that thing always. You always have to reinforce that thing always and say, this is what I want to achieve, this is what I want to get to, this is what I want to do. And I create systems that brings these things closer to me. All right, bring this is clear to my face, bring this is clear to my attention, so that every time I am seeing them, I am seeing what they are, I am seeing what they are providing, I'm seeing what they are saying, and I'm seeing the consequences of arriving at them, I'm seeing the influence of arriving at them, and this helps me stay focused on the goal. All right, that is called proximity. Now the next thing that makes for consistency, which is very much it's close to one of the points already outlined, and I've called it discipline. We might not be the perfect fit for it. All right. So, but let's say discipline. The discipline factor here, or the note of discipline here, is in a very, very strategic way. What discipline is doing here is not necessary to say, do it was this. No, no. It's trying to tell you that you should not break the pattern of whatever has been laid down before. If there are systems that have been created, don't break it. All right? If there are systems that have been created, don't break it. If there is a proximity, don't break it. If there is a reason, don't break it. Right? If there is an action step, don't break it. So what happens is that you want to understand the reason, you want to understand the consequences, you want to have proximity, but then the discipline system comes in for you to understand that the time the immediate step you take in breaking these commitments you made towards this particular goal or system, it breaks your capacity, or breaks your energy, or breaks your credibility, it breaks your power to be able to sustain or hold on to that thing for a very long time, because you have broken the booster that allows for that possibility. And so anybody that works in the consistency game wants to ensure that he or she is every time motivated. And even if he or she is not motivated, he just gets to stay focused on doing what he has carefully outlined to do. Whether it feels sweet, whether it feels good, whether it feels nice, whether it feels abundant, whether it feels boring, whatever way it is, he shows up to do those things because he knows that immediately that this pattern is broken, it causes what? A failure. Immediately the pattern is broken, it causes a very big failure that does not allow for progress, and it breaks your consistency game. And so if you work with this framework, you'll be able to arrive at consistency very, very quickly. And this will be the stop for the class today. I hope you've learned something and you get on to engage on this. I'd like you to drop a comment when you get to apply this in your life and check up to see how this framework works. And let's get your feedback. And if this has blessed you, you can reach out to somebody, share it out, and get people to actually learn from it and become successful. Have a great time. Thank you.